Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, how are you today? Welcome to another English class. So today we are going to learn about presentations. More specifically, how to do presentations in English. So what we learn today is the first, I'm going to explain to you how to do presentation in English. That means the things that you can do and the things that you have to avoid when you are doing presentations in English. And then the second thing that we learn today is presentation language. So this is related to expressions, yeah, or things that you can say when you are presenting in English. Okay, and the last thing is there's some presentation vocabulary, so words related to presentation. Okay, let's move on to the first lesson, how to do presentations in English. So in this section, I'm going to show you what you have to do, yeah, and what you don't do or what you have to avoid when you are making presentations, especially presentations in English. Okay, so things that you can do when you are presenting in English. The first is use simple language. Okay, as I told you in the first or in the previous lessons on speaking, the goal of speaking in English is so that the other person understands what you are saying. Yeah, so that means you don't have to use really big words or complex words if you can express what you are trying to say in simple language, yeah, so most probably your audience will understand what you are talking about. Okay, so try to use simple language. The next thing that you have to do is speak slowly. Okay, so sometimes when we are presenting, if we get too nervous, so we want the presentation to end as quick as possible, then we start speaking too fast, okay, or we don't keep track of the time, or we are afraid we will run out of time. Okay? But if you speak slowly, your audience will understand because there are a lot of people in the audience. Yeah, you don't know if they understand or not. So it's different from talking to your friends or talking or having interpersonal conversations. When you are presenting, you have to speak at a slower pace than you normally do. Okay, so take note of that. So speak at a slower pace than you normally do when you are talking with someone. Okay, so that to make sure the audience catches what you are trying to say. The next one is pay attention to visuals. If you are presenting and you are using, for example, PowerPoints or other visuals, yeah, have them edited professionally if possible. Okay, so spelling or grammar mistakes that you can see on screen, yeah, is more unforgivable than mistakes that you say. Okay, so because visuals, that means it is written text. So make sure your visuals have the correct text written. Okay, so pay more attention to visuals. Okay, so different from the way you speak. Even if you speak, you make mistakes, it's okay. But for visuals, try to make sure there are no mistakes in the visuals because the audience will catch it right away and it will ruin their concentration if they see a lot of mistakes. Okay. The next one is use verbs. Okay, so what does this mean? Yeah, verbs are more powerful when in speaking than nouns. Okay, so it's different than in writing. So when you are speaking, maybe you can say um, when you are speaking, so maybe you can or when you are writing, maybe you can say something like COVID-19 cases, or the increase of COVID-19 cases, yeah, happened since March. Okay, so you can say that the increase of COVID-19 cases happened since March. Okay, so this is a passive sentence. Okay, the increase. So there's the noun here is increase. Okay, so this is okay. Yeah, but this is good if you are writing reports. When you are presenting your reports, in order to make more impact or more effect on the audience, yeah, even if you just say COVID-19 cases increased since March. Okay, so this focuses on the verbs. Yeah, so you want to say that the cases increased, right? So that's the point of your sentence. If you say COVID-19 cases increased since March, yeah, this will have more effect than if you are saying the increase of COVID-19 cases happened since March. So the focus is blurred in the first sentence, but it is clear in the second sentence, okay? Okay, so move on to the next one. Use signposts or transition words. So what are signposts? Signpost means tanda. Okay, transition means transisi, ya perubahan. Okay, so that means these are words or expressions that you can use to indicate where you are going with the presentation. Okay, so when you are presenting, you could say, for example, if you want to move on to the next section, yeah, you can say, let's move on to, yeah, or if you want to end the presentation, okay, now we reach the end, or in conclusion, yeah, if you want to say the end, or if you want to state points, yeah, you can say firstly, secondly, thirdly, and so forth. Okay, so these we will learn more about this in our second section on presentation language. But one thing to note is when you are doing presentation, yeah, when you are saying these signposts, it will direct the audience to what you are trying to say. Okay, so so that they know which point of the presentation you're at. Okay. Okay, the next one is write down numerical information. So there, if your presentation has numbers, yeah, or statistics, it's good to write them down rather than just saying it, if those statistics are important. Okay, so write down and make sure you say the correct saying, yeah, when you are trying to say those numbers. Okay, so I find that sometimes even if you have good command of English, when you have to say numbers, yeah, like year or big numbers, people have difficulty, yes, saying those big numbers. Yeah, for example, the year 2020 or 2020, okay, 1998, 1900, 1998. Okay, so it's tricky, but try to practice. So that's why we need to do a lot of practice. Okay. The next one is learn from great presenters. Okay, so if you want to improve your presentation skills, it's good to watch other or good presenters do their presentations. Okay, you can now we have YouTube. Yeah, you don't have to like directly come to those great presenters to view their presentations directly. You can watch the recordings of the presentations. Like, for example, Steve Jobs is a good presenter. He always makes engaging presentations. You can watch his presentations, how he, for example, when he launched his products, like the iPhone or the MacBook, yeah, they create a lot of impact. Or you can watch to TED Talks. The presenters in TED Talks are also good presenters that can engage the audience. Okay, and of course, the last thing is to practice and rehearse. Okay, so do a lot of practice. Yeah, practice will make you see which points that you are not good at. Yeah, if the presentation is over time, or if it's too short, if it's too long, then you have to modify it. Yeah, and do rehearsal if possible. You do it in front of someone who is good at English, so that he or she can point out your mistakes or what you can do better. Okay, so the next one is things to avoid. So what you have to avoid when you are doing presentations. So don't do these things. The first one is using acronyms. Okay, so make sure if you are trying to explain acronyms or concepts, yeah, make sure that the audience understands what it is. Okay, so example, if you want to say the US, so a lot of people will probably know what that means. The US means the United States. But if we are using acronyms that people might not be familiar with, try to explain, yeah, what the acronyms are. And avoid using jargons and slang, because this is if you are doing a formal presentation, yeah. So speak formally, yeah. Avoid using slang. And also avoid using idioms if you are not familiar with them. So just speak normally. Okay, so idioms are good for maybe for ice breaking or trying to get your point across, but you have to be able to be familiar with these idioms and have the audience, yeah, be familiar with those idioms as well. So if the audience, for example, if they have also have low level of English, if you use a lot of complex words using idioms, they probably won't understand what those idioms are. And one other thing that I find that students are doing, or a lot of people are doing, is that when they do presentations, they read directly from their slides or their notes. So this is bad, especially if you're reading straight from the slides. That means you cannot face the audience. You cannot make eye contact with the audience because you are looking back reading your slides, yeah, or your notes, or reading from your laptop. Yes, so this is why rehearsing and practicing is important, so that you can say what you want to say. So you are speaking, not reading aloud, right? So in presentations, it's a practice of speaking, not a practice of reading. Okay, so that means try to make sure that your presentation is not cluttered. So there are not too much information on the slides, so that the reader focuses on you, not on your visuals. Okay, so and that is also a way to avoid you reading from the slides. Okay, so because the audience comes to your presentation not to read your slides, yeah, but they want to listen to you. So the most important tool, the most important thing, the focus on the presentation is yourself, not the slides. And then avoid negative body language. So that means, for example, if you are presenting, it's best you do it standing up, yeah, facing the audience, yeah, open body language. So have your arms out, yeah, instead of having them back or putting your arms together, yeah, slouching down. So have a positive body language so that the audience knows that you are enthusiastic about your presentation, so they will listen to your presentation. Okay, so now we move on to presentation language. So what you can say if you are presenting. So as you know, presentations can be divided into three main sections. So you have the introduction, you have the body of the presentation, and you have the conclusion. So we're going to learn how to transition or what to do when you are starting your presentation, when you are transitioning from one section to another, how to end the presentation, what to say if you want to invite questions, if you don't know how to answer the questions, if you want to paraphrase the questions or paraphrase opinions, or making an emphasis of what you are trying to say. Okay, so here are some English expressions to be used when doing presentations. Okay, the first one is the introduction. Okay, so the introduction introduces yourself, yeah, or other people. If you are, for example, the moderator and you want to introduce the other person who is the presenter. Okay, so you can say, on behalf of company, I would like to welcome you here today. Okay, or you can introduce yourself. My name is blah, blah, blah. Good morning, everyone. My name is blah, blah, blah. I'd like to introduce, if you want to introduce someone else, hi, everyone, and so forth. Okay. One thing to note here when you are starting your presentation and also when you are ending your presentation is don't forget to thank the audience for coming. Okay, so that will create rapport with the audience. Yeah, so it will be more engaging. Yeah, so you will be more engaged with the audience if you thank them in the beginning and then you thank them again at the end for coming and then for listening to your presentation until the end. Okay, so after you introduced yourself, so this is the first one is assuming that the other person is not aware, yeah, but even if the other person is aware of you, for example, if you are doing presentation for college, for university, yeah, it's good to introduce yourself first. After you introduce yourself, then you can introduce your topic, yeah. So introductory phrases are said after the welcome address and the introduction of the speaker, where the speaker tells about what they are going to talk about. Okay, so after you introduce yourself, then you say to the reader or to the audience what you want, what you are here today for. So what you want to talk about. Okay, so you can say, today I am here to talk to you about blah, blah, blah. As you all know, today I'm going to talk to you about our advertising strategy. I would like to take this opportunity to talk to you about how to get new clients. I am delighted to be here today to tell you about our creative strategy. Today, I would like to outline our latest advertising campaign. I'm going to do a presentation on our company's advertising plan. Okay, so that's what you can do to introduce your topic. The next one is structure of presentation. So this gives the audience an overview of the presentation structure. So the audience will know what to expect in detail. So they know, okay, so they already know you're going to talk about this topic. And then after that, they know the specific things that you are trying to say about these topics, okay? So you can say what you're going to say, like I did in the beginning, yeah? I have told you what I'm going to talk about, yeah, in this presentation. Okay, so you can say, my talk today is divided into three parts. I will introduce the campaign. Next, I will talk about what it is about, and lastly, how we will do it. Okay, so you see the parts in bold. Okay, these are what we call signposts. Okay, so the parts in bold are what we call signpost language. Okay, so like here, next, yeah, and then lastly, yeah, and then first. Okay, so these are all signpost language. Okay. Okay. The next one is starting the presentation. Okay, so now you can finally start the presentation. Um, I'm going to show the phrases that can help the audience know that you're now starting the main presentation. Yeah, for example, I will start with some general information on the campaign. I would just like to give you some background information about the campaign. Before I start, does anyone know about our latest advertising campaign for the World Wildlife Fund? As you are all aware, we need to generate more leads to achieve this year's targets. As you all know, our sales have been declining lately, so we'll start with addressing that issue before I talk about anything else. Okay, the next one is changing the topic. So this is you transitioning from one section or one thing to another, okay? Or if you are giving the presentation to someone else, okay? So for example, if you are doing a group presentation, how to change from one person to another, okay? So right, let's move on to production costs for the ads. This leads me to my next point, which is how we can generate more leads. I would now like to look at our target audience for this campaign. Now I will pass you over to William Bram, who will explain to you about the results from our market research. Okay, the next one is graphs and images. So presentations, if you are doing a business presentation, for example, sometimes you have to use graphs and images to be more effective. So here are some phrases that you can use to give your audience an understanding of your visuals. Okay, so you can say, let me use a graphic to explain the situation. Please take a look at this. I'd like to illustrate this point by showing you how effective our campaign will be. Let the pictures speak for themselves. I think you understand what I'm saying if you look at this photo here. I think the graph perfectly shows how we measure against our competitors. If you look at this table, you can see that this strategy will be more effective than others. Okay, the next part is inviting questions. Okay, so at presentations, there is usually a question and answer session. Okay, so the audience may want to ask something to clarify about the presentation. So these phrases are used when you want the audience to ask any questions to you. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or comments? I'm happy to answer your questions now. Please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Please stop me if you have any questions. Do you have any questions before I move on? If there are no further questions at this point, I'd like to move on to the next part. Just raise your hand if you have any questions. Okay, so when the audience asks the question and you don't know how to answer it, okay, this is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? You don't have to answer all questions well. If you really don't know how to answer, instead of making up an answer and trying to make that you understand when you don't, yeah, you can use these following phrases to address the fact. Okay, so one thing that I can do instead of trying to answer the questions when wrong, I would just say, that's an interesting question. I don't actually know off the top of my head, but I'll try to get back to you later with an answer. Okay, so that means you are trying to make the effort to answer the question, even though you cannot answer it off the top of your head now. So you need more time to think, more time to find more information, and you will do that for the audience who asks the question for you. Okay, I'm afraid I'm unable to answer that at the moment. Perhaps I can get back to you later. Good question. I really don't know. What do you think? Okay, so the audience will probably have an idea of the answer. So if you really don't know, you can ask them again, what do you think? Okay, and then if they answer, so maybe you'll have more ideas and you can still be engaging. So instead of saying, okay, I don't know about that, okay, try to engage the audience by asking about the question. Okay, or you can say, that's a very good question. However, I don't have any figures on that, so I can't give you an accurate answer. Okay, so just be honest if you really don't know how to answer the question. Unfortunately, I'm not the best person to answer that. Okay, so that is you being honest, not being able to answer the question instead of just doing an answer that is wrong or making up an answer that is not necessarily the correct answer. Okay, and then after that, if you want to end the presentation, you should summarize the important facts once again. Okay, so one thing about doing a presentation is there's a rule of three. Yeah, I didn't put it here. So the rule of three when you are making presentation is say what you're going to say. Okay, so the first one is say what you're going to say. Say it. And say it again. Okay, so in the first part, you say what you're going to say. Today, I'm going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And then you say it. Okay, so this is the body of your presentation. Okay, and then in the conclusion, you say it again. Okay, so this is the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Okay, so when you are ending your presentation, okay, so what you have to do, you can, to sum up, if we use this strategy, we will be able to achieve our objectives. So to summarize the main points of my talk, if you accept this proposal, I promise your brand will be top of mind. Just a quick recap of my main points. By increasing our advertising budget, we can generate more clients and increase sales. In conclusion, let me sum up my main points. Effective campaigns need to be simple but have high emotional appeal. Okay, so these are some expressions that you can say when you want to summarize your presentation. Okay, so you've come to the end of the presentation. Okay, so these phrases are used when you indicate your audience that you are ending your presentation. I'd like to conclude by reiterating that this campaign will be your best yet. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you all for listening. It was a pleasure being here today. Well, that's it from me. Thanks very much. Well, that concludes my presentation today. Thank you very much for listening. In conclusion, I hope you were inspired and my talk is useful. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, so one other thing to note is to ensure that your presentation does not sound monotonous. Yeah, from time to time, you should emphasize certain points. Or if you want to make the audience understand what is the really important thing, or what are the important things from your presentation? So here are some suggestions. It should be emphasized that all employees must adhere to the new regulations. I would like to draw your attention to this point. So this instantly focuses the audience on what you're going to say next. Okay, so maybe sometimes they wonder, sometimes they lose focus. If you say this, the audience will go back to your presentation, will focus more on what you are going to say next. Another significant point is that our latest campaign have significantly boosted our sales. The significance of this is that these figures represent what our target market wants. This is important because social media is part of everyone's lives nowadays. We have to remember that by choosing the right strategy, we will achieve our goals. Okay, so the next one is paraphrasing. At times, it might happen that you expressed yourself unclearly and your audience did not understand your point. Okay, so this may happen especially when you are presenting in English, where English is not your native language, or also English is not the native language of your audience, but you have to speak in English. Sometimes you have to rephrase what you are saying to make it easier to understand to your audience. In other words, we cannot increase sales if we just use the same hard sell strategy. To put it more simply, increasing social media presence will benefit our company. What I mean to say is that we need to move on to succeed. So what I'm saying is corporate social responsibility needs to be under public relations department. To put it another way, we need to revise our strategy for the campaign to work as it should, right? Okay, so that's it for presentation language. Okay, so next I will give a quick overview on presentation vocabulary. You can read this after I give you the presentation file. So that here's just a quick recap of some vocabulary that is related to presentations. Okay, so for example, we have attendees, audience, participants, presenter, and speaker. Okay, so you can address your audience as participants, okay, or audience or attendees, and the people presenting as presenter or speaker. Places, these are the places that you use when, or that is usually related to presentation. There's the boardroom, yeah, the breakout room, the conference room, meeting room, and venue. Sometimes you have to express your presentations using visual diagrams. Okay, so it is called a bar chart, a line graph, pie chart, and table. And here are some verbs that you can use, yeah, in your presentation. As we mentioned before, that verbs are more powerful than nouns. Okay, so you can say, for example, I want to explain, to summarize, conclude, discuss, communicate, clarify, emphasize, state, highlight, outline, review, spell out, get across, address, focus on, stress, point out, recap, consider, expand, elaborate, digress, comment, increase, decrease, or increase, decrease, fluctuate, repeat, motivate, sum up. Okay, So that's some presentation vocabulary and presentation powerful verbs that you can use in your presentation. Okay, so that's it from me today. Thank you for watching and for participating. I hope you learn more about making presentations in English. Okay, I'll see you next time. Have a nice day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.